Hey loves, how you doing? Deanna here from Deanna Org, and welcome to the Nova Holistic podcast, episode 25, which was meant to air yesterday, but today here we are, or here I am, I should say, offering this late edition episode. So I wanted to check in with you today as opposed to yesterday and share with you what was happening yesterday and the reason why I wasn't able to go live and do the episode yesterday. So it's been a series of events that have happened sort of over the last few days. Excuse me. So to start off with, the person that was meant to be my guest today, interestingly enough, had to cancel, and it was a last minute cancellation. I attempted to invite someone I have like on a waiting list to be a guest today, but that didn't happen either. So I was intending on talking on a particular topic today, which I will still mention. Um, but that was the first sort of thing that happened with regards to the episode today. Um, the next thing that happened was that my son had a work accident on Saturday night and he sliced his finger. And so the last few days have been this back and forth between the hospital, his work, trying to work out what's going on and what to do, etc. Um, so on Monday, I spent almost the whole day chasing people and specialists in the hospital and trying to work out which is the right department to go to and how to do it and what to do and all of that because I I didn't know. I mean, I personally hadn't been to the hospital since Ronan was born, and he's 18 now. And, Ronan hasn't needed to go to the hospital since he was about 2 years old or something, or younger. So, it's been a while and never here in Sydney. So I've got, even though it's the RPH, and which is one of the biggest hospitals here in Sydney, um, yeah, just not familiar with procedures, etc., or the way things work. Got no idea about the health system, to be honest. Yeah, I just don't know. So Monday was spent doing the chasing. Finally, we were told to show up for a checkup at a specific plastic surgeon's department in the hospital, like early in the morning, like 6:45. So we get to the hospital at 6:30 yesterday morning. We get in to see the doctor. He has a look at Ronan's wound, and he says, "Easy fixed, not a problem, not infected, everything's fine, but he will need surgery in order to properly close the wound that the emergency department just sort of temporarily fixed on Saturday night." So we then get a referral to the day surgery department and spent the whole day in the surgery until eventually it's Ronan's turn, and he has surgery last night. Again, everything is fine. His recovery is good. So we come home late last night and we're here. But so the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because the stay at the hospital yesterday was not planned. At no point were we advised that this is even a possibility, yet alone a reality. So I didn't plan for it. So consequently, yesterday didn't happen. Anyway, that's the story. But as I was thinking about this episode yesterday while we were waiting, um, I was aware about the level of sorry, the nature of the energy in this space. I would describe being in a hospital in a day surgery unbeknownst to you, or I mean, there were some people that had appointments, but there were a lot of people that were kind of ad hoc attendees, if you will, of this particular department, um, like us there. So the energy that was predominant, I want to say, was frustration, and then closely followed by boredom, also fear and anxiety underlying, because there's a lot of unknowns in a place like that. So I was talking to Ronan about this, and he was saying how the thing that bothered him the most was the unknown piece, as in, if the doctor told him, okay, you need to have surgery and it's going to be done between 3 and 5, for example, blah, 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 then he could deal with it. It's fine. He could have come home, done a couple of things, picked up a couple of things that he didn't take with him early in the morning because he didn't think he was going to be out all day, um, um, etc. But that just sitting in the unknown was very uncomfortable. And of course, it was boring because you can't really leave because they could literally call your name out at any time and you don't want to miss your turn. Um, and so sitting in that energy of frustration, pain, boredom, anxiety, fear is utterly exhausting, like for me. And also for Ronan, it's just exhausting sitting in that particular environment for any length of time, yet alone continually. So I was acutely aware that this is the environment that some people work in. And so I felt a great deal of, compassion. I mean, I know it's their choice and everything, but I don't choose to live that way or work in that sort of an environment. So to me, that felt like, you know, um, I felt the weight of that. And so that inspired compassion, and wanting to add or infuse that energy or that environment with kindness when I spoke to staff, as opposed to adding to the frustration. Um, Energy, that energy that was already very, very, very heavily entrenched in that environment. Um, I'm sharing this with you because, in the spirit of what I'm trying to do here with this podcast, Nova Holistic, I'm wanting to not just be someone that hosts and talks, hosts examples of a more holistic, balanced, more aware and conscious way of being, but also to model that with my own behavior. So I'm sharing, um, my experience with that in mind, hoping that with that example of, um, being aware, fully aware of your environment internally, your internal environment, but also your external environment, you can then consciously choose wherever possible to behave, to create the highest possible potential of version of that moment. And so, as I was observing, as I was aware of this particular energy bubble, this environment that we were in, and then choosing, also being aware of what that was inspiring inside of me. Don't get me wrong, I was also feeling frustration and anxiety and concern for Ronan and, being kind of blindsided by the hospital with regards to Ronan now having to have surgery, and neither one of us is prepared for this thing that has to happen. Um, I was also feeling all of that inside of me, but then understanding that I was probably not going to feel better if I lashed out at a staff member, consciously choosing how I was going to speak, the tone of my voice, how I was going to behave, and what I was going to offer outwardly in that environment ended up creating a connection, um, a temporary rapport, I guess, with the ladies and the gentlemen that were at at in the reception area, in the what do you call it when you, like, a check-in kind of area? I know there's a name for it, and I just escapes me, so just excuse me. It created a really nice rapport between us as the patients, or my son and me as the guardian, and the staff that were there. That includes the nurses that were, processing and evaluating and all of that before Ronan went into surgery. Now, they may seem like little things, but these days they're not little things. These days, because collectively, from an evolutionary perspective, our emotional bodies are suddenly being blown wide open, and there are a large percentage of the population on this planet at this time don't know or have practiced internal strategies for their emotional body. So their emotional body just runs riot in constant reaction and survival triggers. And so the behavior that results from unchecked, unconscious, not present emotional states, such as frustration and anger and sadness and grief and all of these things, when we don't have the tools to to deal with these consciously, they just come flying out in any second, with no filter, just spewing out into the world things that we can and must learn to manage better. The answer at no time is to shut the emotional body down. It really bothers me when people, right, supposed experts out there, discuss the evilness of the emotional body. We have emotions because we have energy in motion. Energy in motion is like a little bit like a messenger that carries information about your state of well-being or disharmony within. That's it. If we turn a blind eye, disown or shut down this energy that's in motion, trying to bring a message from within into your consciousness, i.e., your mind, you are disowning yourself. You are functioning at best at half a cylinder, and at no time are you able to create your fullest potential. Period. So stop that rubbish about it's all about the mind. It's all about all of you. Your body, physical body, your emotional body, and all these extraordinary messengers that are trying to give you information about your state of well-being within. Your mind, which puts it in order and in a way that you can perceive it, you can understand it. And then your spirit, your highest potential, the invisible part of you that is wise, your wisdom self, your passion, your desire, your purpose in life. So, I then, as I was sitting there yesterday having, you know, having an active, being quiet, but having an active conversation with those parts of me inside, acknowledging how I was feeling, observing the environment around me, consciously choosing how I wanted to be in that, within that environment as an individual, but also part of a whole. And I was, and how therefore I was going to offer myself to this environment and to the relationships with people that I was, seeing, nodding, talking to, staff, nurses, surgeons, etc. I had a few moments to to also observe and then do some journaling. And what I journaled was really interesting, and I want to share this with you. And I might read what I wrote and then sort of discuss as I go. And I had my diary with me, so I sort of was journaling. Okay. And here's what I wrote. There are days that are just not love and light. So what do we do with these? How do we honor our highest potential when life feels like it's dragging us through the sewer? Undertone. Shit happens, right? In my experience, when I'm in that space of, being dragged, what feels like being dragged through the sewer and in one way or another, reminders of, divine self and spiritualizing and, again, love and light and thinking positive, raise your vibration. In some moments, this sort of stuff does nothing more but inspire a good old, excuse my language, I'm about to swear, fuck off from inside of me. And I actually do this for a living. So, if I can feel in this way, where I just wanted to go away, all the love and light shit, and all the spiritualizing shit, then others must as well, right? Um, what I find that does help is in days, moments like this, or even more extended periods of time, is a single-minded focus on balanced physical states, meaning I make sure that I'm hydrated, drinking water. Because yesterday we couldn't eat. Rona needed to fast all day in order to be able to have surgery for the purpose of oh my goodness, for the purpose of being anesthetized. He couldn't eat all day, so we weren't allowed to really do anything. But staying hydrated is really important. Sips of water throughout the whole day. So that's one thing. And even though the tummy is growling, we are mostly made out of water. So it's really important to keep the hydration up, right? At the very least. So that's one thing. When we eat mindfully and eat well. Deep breaths. There were several times throughout the day yesterday where both Ronan and I needed to remind each other to take a deep breath and just to recenter. Yeah? Excuse me. Holding or squeezing a crystal is something that I find incredibly helpful. So I'm wearing one now. This beautiful mesh necklace actually comes from a beautiful friend of mine called Luca from his crystal shop. He's actually been a guest on this podcast. Go check out his website on Why Not Crystals. You'll be able to get one of these. So I like holding a crystal or having one on me and just playing with it. I find it really soothing. It's an organic, crystals are organic earth matter, essentially. And they have these beautiful properties within them. Of course, they help with all sorts of different things, different ways to crystals that support you. So I find that really helpful. So something kinesthetic, yeah. Almost like taking the function of a stress ball. So instead of squeezing something, I play with it, I hold it, it's on my body, I feel it. Yeah. So that's really helpful for me. Also, where possible, incense, I burn incense or have something, relaxing that I can smell. Taking a break often in times of additional stress or frustration, the mind can go into overdrive and it wants to think too much. It wants to get ahead of itself. It wants to fix everything right now. It wants to control. And sometimes, like yesterday, we just simply couldn't control the day. There was no way to know or to instruct or to push or to command for things to go quicker. So taking a break often in order to slow down the mind, in order to give the mind a break from anxious or anxiety or fear thinking is really important. And coming back into the present moment, back into the body, not allowing the mind to sort of, get out of hand with catastrophizing in the future. And what if this goes wrong? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if blah, 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 blah. Anxiety, 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 anxiety. Oh my God, right? Back into the body, not into the mind, back into the body, diaphragm, deep breathing, sip of water, play with the crystal. So those sort of more physical things And for me, obviously, journaling, so writing things out, um, even if it's just typing on the phone, they're really important, kind of immediate, no cost things that I can do and ways that I can activate as many of my senses in the present moment as possible. Yeah. So, right. So then I wrote what these sort of more physical, immediately focused, no cost, staying in the present moment things do is they keep the intake of oxygen high and keep you hydrated, obviously. These are some of the basic, and then taking lots of breaks, yeah? These are some of the really, like, if we can't sleep, is what I mean. These are basic necessities for us to exist and survive in any situation, right? So, staying hydrated, I've already explained. Taking breaks often, I've already explained. And with that deep breathing and slowing things down, like as in the mind, from overworking and overthinking and creating anxiety and stress scenarios in the brain. Deep breathing increases the intake of oxygen in your system. So when the oxygen um, level, hydration is slowing down, and they're staying in the present moment, when those things work together, what it actually does is it activates. I'm going to read this to you. Just hang on a second. Where am I? Sorry. It activates or reactivates the parasympathetic nervous system. And so it's here, Dr. Google, just to explain it to you. The parasympathetic nervous system predominates or dominates quiet rest and digest conditions, while the sympathetic nervous system drives the fight or flight response in stressful situations. So, when you're in a stressful situation, the sympathetic nervous system will activate right into that fight or flight, which is why there was so much frustration and everything happening in the room, right? You want to bring yourself back into a rest and digest or a rest and well-being state within you. And those things that I described to you help you do that. That's the point of this, right? So that lowers the creation of cortisol hormone, which is the stress hormone. It keeps you more in that well-being, wellness state, which is really important when you're trying to heal, right? And so when I'm with Ronan, my child, then I'm leading the way, showing him by example how to do this, why it's important. We even shared this and talked about this together about the parasympathetic nervous system, etc. So I think in our time, once we discussed and talked about remembering that we can co create a healing space by intending our energy to flow a certain way, to ask our higher self, our guidance. If you have any framework around, angels or, other sort of guidance to help you with the process of healing, with the time, with the inner surgery, etc. So we discussed those things to remember that we're not simply at the mercy of this particular situation, that we have the option to collaborate energetically with and ask for help, right? And ask for help and protection and ease of procedure and peace and all of those things. So we had a reminder conversation about this as well. That's another way that, and it feels, when there's a belief system, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. When there's a belief system, um, of some kind of, well, belief and faith are really kind of the same thing, but there's a faith, there's a belief that you're not on your own, that you are being looked after, and there is, to your highest, absolutely highest potential, then the victim self gets parked, right? It's much more empowering to believe that you're gonna be okay, even if you're scared, that you will be looked after, that you are safe, than somehow feeling like you are the victim of circumstance and that something is gonna get you, yeah, or someone. Um, so this was another important factor for us, and it's there available to you as well if you have some sort of a framework around this. Again, not speaking in polarities, not saying right or wrong. When it comes to spiritual concepts, energy or quantum field concepts, these sorts of things are really an empowered state of being that I believe in, that supports me and our family. Of course, this is also very much up to my son to discern for himself about what is right for him and how to go about practicing that for himself in his life. Yeah. Um, but anyway, I share it with you because it's absolutely a potential, an option, an opportunity for you to choose to practice some of those more empowered approaches, if you will. What else did I write down? Yeah, I think that that's basically it. Well, more or less. Of course, there's more, but just in the spirit of what we are talking about now. So then, again, when there's a stressful situation and your sympathetic nervous system is triggered, um, the body will create more of the stress hormone. You're more likely to go into a fight or flight response, which shuts down things like your immune system, your capacity to heal at your best, because it goes from healing to survival. So, what you want to do is you want to encourage your body to activate or come back into balance and reactivate the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can be at rest. All right, can you hear me now? My headset just died. Sorry about that. Yeah, so to reactivate your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can go back into a state of rest and well-being. So that's the point of that. And one of the ways that as I've described specific things that that I remember, tools to use. Um, But at bottom, what I'm also doing there is I'm trying to activate as many of uh, uh, the actual senses. So I'm having a multi-sensory and multi-dimensional experience in the present moment. So if you remember, I talked about the breath, and sometimes I use my hands, I put them over my belly button, and I just breathe deep and relax. That's sort of the sense of touch. If I can, put on some incense. That's not always possible, but put on some incense or have a little tiny vial of, I don't know, like an aromatherapy oil or something like that that you can smell, that will help you relax, like a, I don't know, like a lavender or some sort of a concoction that you create for yourself, and have with you when you go out. That's the sense of smell. Visualization can help. So, that's that sight. Um, Making sure that you stay hydrated, that's taste, and so on and so forth. Hearing, maybe playing some relaxation music. That's the hearing sense. So, activating in a multisensory, multi-dimensional way, really important, staying in the present moment and making sure that in your stressful situation, you're slowing down, not as opposed to speeding up. And even if things are happening quickly, that you can stop as often as possible, have lots of breaks in between lots of doing, so that you can keep coming back into your center, keep coming back, keep reactivating that parasympathetic nervous system. Really important. Okay. I can't believe I've been talking for 37 minutes. Goodness me. All right. So I'm going to finish there. I want to thank you for being here with me. And being patient with the late edition of this particular episode. I will replay this episode next week on Tuesday. We're going to go back to Tuesday, of course, and then the week after that for episode 26, I've got a new guest, a lady called Kat Rambo. She's this fabulous firecracker from the States, and I think if I remember correctly, she lives in Miami. I can't wait to bring her to you for our next conversation. Okay, on that note, mwah, love you lots. I hope you're doing okay. Wishing you so much love and well-being and joy and all the most spectacular heart-centered attributes to you and all your loved ones. Bye for now.